A person hearing the Christmas story for the first time might get the impression that here was a series of events that were not very well organised and were completely out of control. The story starts with Mary, a young unmarried woman, being told that she's going to have a child out of wedlock. Her fiancé Joseph eventually comes to accept this after he's told about it in a dream, and then, to throw a spanner in the works, the emperor in a faraway country in Rome calls for a census requiring every person to return to their place of birth. Now, Joseph possibly feared that Mary would be the target of a stoning, as the Old Testament set down for sex outside of marriage, and so he takes his heavily pregnant fiancée on the arduous 4-day journey from Nazareth down to Bethlehem. And when they arrive there, they find all the accommodation is full, and so the baby Jesus, when he's eventually born, is placed in an animal food trough. Some shepherds are called away from their work looking after sheep to see the new baby, and eventually some wise men come from the east following a star. They're unable to find the exact location where this new king is going to be born, so they go to the royal palace in Jerusalem. The current king later sends his troops to kill all the baby boys in Bethlehem. But by this time, Mary and Joseph and Jesus have fled to Egypt as refugees. So it looks like the birth of Jesus was a totally random event with no prior planning, and certainly that must have been the perspective of Mary and Joseph. But the Bible tells us that this was very carefully planned by God from long before. In fact, in the Old Testament we find over a dozen prophecies about the birth of Jesus. So let's have a look at some of them. Firstly, they tell us how he's going to be conceived. In Isaiah 7 it says, "A virgin will be with child and give birth to a son." So this child is going to be born miraculously without an earthly father. They also tell us where he's going to be born. In Micah 5 it says the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. King Herod's scholars knew this, and so they sent the wise men there. Being born in Bethlehem because he was of David's line meant that he would reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, as it says in Isaiah 9. The prophecies also tell us what would accompany his birth. In Numbers 25 it says, "A star will come out of Jacob, a scepter out of Israel, a ruler out of Jacob." And this star was what led the wise men to Israel. It also tells us about his visitors. In Psalm 72 it talks about great and wealthy kings who would come bringing gifts of gold and incense, as outlined in Isaiah 60. But this Messiah would not be rich. He would grow up like a tender shoot, like a root out of dry ground, in Isaiah 53. And the offering that his parents gave in the temple of 2 pigeons showed that his family was poor and could not afford the normal lamb. Nor would everyone be pleased at the birth of the child. King Herod, wanting to eliminate a possible rival, sends his soldiers to kill all the baby boys in Bethlehem, and so there was great mourning in the town. Jeremiah 31 says there would be weeping for the children who would be no more. But the baby Messiah would escape as a refugee to Egypt, based on the prophecy of Hosea 11, "Out of Egypt have I called my son." And this Messiah would be more than an earthly king, more than simply a descendant of David's royal line. This king's rule would never end, and he would be no less than a wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace, as it says in Isaiah 9. He would be Emmanuel, which means God who is with us, in Isaiah 7. So these prophecies remind us of the kind of God that we worship. He comes into our world in unusual and unexpected ways. He's born in poor and humble circumstances, and his birth is surrounded by uncertainty, danger, and even death. But like the wise kings, we do well to seek him out. We worship him and we give him the best of all that we have. So let me encourage you for the times when your life seems out of control. It may seem unplanned, but God has done his preparation and God has worked it out, just as he did for when Jesus came into the world. Thank you.